Everyone. My name is Aisha Adkins, and I am the constituency organizer for Caring Across Generations. Thank you so much for joining us at Caregiver Corner. Today, I am very honored to have with me two brilliant creators behind the beautiful short film Inherited. But first, for those of you who are not familiar with Caring Across, we are a national movement of family caregivers, persons with disabilities, and older adults, organizing to create a care infrastructure that is equitable, affordable, and accessible to all, because we believe that we all deserve to live and age in our homes and communities with dignity. Yeah. Today during Black History Month, it's the last full week. Like I said, I'm really excited to have two Black filmmakers from Houston, Texas, who have created a piece of art that speaks to care and the Black experience. Joining me today is Sekou Browne, writer and award-winning producer, who is also documentarian and participant in the Comcast Newsmakers program. He is also joined by director, producer, and star of the film, Humphrey Browne III, no relation. Thank you both for coming to hang out with us today, gentlemen. Let's get into it. So first of all, I would like to start by having each of you introduce yourselves so that our listeners and viewers can get to know you a bit. Sekou, why don't you kick us off?
All right. First off, very honored to be here today with Aisha and finding out more about this organization, man. It's like I said, the work that you guys are doing in the trenches with caregivers is phenomenal, man. I just kind of applaud you guys. My name is Sekou Browne, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, but now here in Houston, Texas. And man, I'm a filmmaker. I essentially, my goal is to kind of tell stories that kind of intersect both, my race and my faith. And I've done several projects, with Comcast, from the school to prison pipeline, to my own personal short films, touching on relationships, and of course the topic we're going to touch on today, in terms of caregiving, and also touch a bit on mental illness as well. So again, very privileged to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sekou. And Humphrey, how about yourself?
Humphrey Browne, Texas boy, former secular poor-starving artist turned actor, director, exclusively working for the kingdom of God. Praise the name. Here, living here in Houston, and most recently taking a step behind the camera to do more directing projects. I've been acting for over 25, 30 years, really. So no stranger to that, but entering into this next chapter in my life where it's more on the directing side of things, and husband, father of three, and deacon at our church. It's funny, we started a Zoom call. I still had deacon at the front of my name. It was like Deacon Humphrey Browne. It's like, oh, let me take that off. It's not the context, but we're really, really glad to be here with you all.
Wow. Well, I mean, we're glad to have you, and I love that. I mean, we all have different dimensions and identities. So I am looking forward to digging into what brings you both to your work, what inspires you, as you've both touched upon here. And so I'm certainly excited about this conversation. Now, Sekou, you were inspired to create this project after your experience with your grandmother. Would you take us through what you observed with her and the impact that it had on your life and your art?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, man, my grandmother is probably like many of Black families' grandmother, right? She was like the rock of our family, a true darling. In fact, that was her name, was Darling, right? And but I grew up, I like to believe her favorite, And yeah, so I mean, she really meant the world to me. But all our siblings, we kind of collectively were caring for. And she's super independent for before she kind of went to the where she needed care. And she was like our rock. Like literally, I would come, all my friends knew it, we'd come and hang out, she'd cook for us. And then, slowly but surely, dementia started to hit. And one of the things I wanted to kind of even convey in the story was my denial of it. And you kind of see it in the protagonist's story, because again, she was my favorite. I loved her. And a part of me just didn't want to believe this was happening, which I imagine that's something that you've experienced, maybe people listening have experienced, to see someone you care and love for like turn into someone else. Was I mean, at the time was triggering, traumatic, but we just kind of had to deal with it. And but yeah, man, she went from being super independent to dealing with dementia, to the point where she needed 24/7, surveillance and supervision. So, which kind of really, I was in school, my sister, my older sister, just couldn't handle that, that type of care where we had to keep eye on her all the time, and we had to make the tough decision to put her in a home, right? And which was tough. I mean, like literally, we were, as a family, fortunately, my sister and I was kind of on board, so we would tag team, and we pull her in on the weekends. And I went as far as trying to live closer to her. So eventually we bought a home that was, within 2 or 3 miles, where I can just, drop in every day and, kind of talk to her. So, and yeah, man. So, but it like I said, it was a big change for our family. And I recognize many people were in that situation. And, you don't see a lot of stories out there kind of highlighting it. So, when the pandemic broke, and Humphrey may touch on this a little bit as he describes how this story was birthed. We were in the pandemic and just needed a story to tell. And God blessed me with an idea to tell it through the world we were all kind of cloaked and living in. Because if you go back to 2020, I mean, we were doing birthday parties to happy hours to part. We all were at home, and we were trying to make the best of it. And as a writer, a producer, saw that as an opportunity to tell a story, but also to shed awareness to caregiving on a deep and personal level. And full disclosure, we wanted to tell a film. I had no idea it could resonate with organizations like yours, but that's been some of the joys from screening the film here over the past few months, just seeing beyond just being a lover of film, but just seeing how it really resonates with groups like yours.
Most definitely, Sekou. And I think that's, as a fellow creative, and also a Christian myself, it's interesting to see the intersection and the inspiration of your faith, but also utilizing your art form to tell stories, and then seeing where it goes. And it can go in some really interesting places. And I don't think that we always consider the incredible impact that that our art can have on people until it's out in the world, and people start to engage with it and interact with it. And you're right, you're telling a story that is not often told. And so that's something that I additionally want to dig into, because and as you alluded to, you were at the beginning of the pandemic, and you were really seeking that creative outlet, and you were inspired, and you were going through things, as was the entire world. And the question really is for both of you: take us through that creative process, starting with really writing the script to filming. What was that process like? And then particularly, Humphrey, for you, those scenes that were really challenging and difficult for the viewers to watch, where you were portraying symptoms of be it mental illness or symptoms of dementia, kind of what that thought process was like. If whoever would like to respond to that first.
Well, I'll start first, and then Humphrey can take it from script on, because one of the values of a director is, I may have the idea in my mind, I may write it on a page, but, it's really his fingerprints that make it palatable for those that are going to watch, right? But, for me writing it, as I mentioned, the pandemic created a constraint. Like, we had to keep people safe. We had to keep ourselves safe, right? Because at the time, this was mid 2020. Way before any talks of a vaccine, right? We were really in a moment of uncertainty, but as filmmakers, we wanted to get out and tell this story. So I did want the story to kind of live in that world, which it ended up, like, how can I tell a story where we'll be at a distance? But then thematically, the idea of inheritance was a seed planted by a sermon that my pastor, Dr. Dana Carson here in Houston, preached years ago in 2009 with it. And it talked about the importance of living with legacy in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. As, Gen Xer, millennial, Zennial, whatever I was born, I'm right there on that cuff, right? Our generation.
Gen X, baby. Come on over.
Right. Right. We really benefited from the fruits of the sacrifice of those that went through slavery and went through colonialism. Right. We were the first generation, to go to school freely and have opportunities, and, we've fully embraced and relished in it to the extent where, we've almost kind of forgotten that we should be preparing for the next generation. So that sermon was extremely impactful.
You know what? Let me pause you right there. I just want listeners and viewers to grasp that for a moment, to really let that sink in, right? The Generation X, these are people in their 40s, essentially 40s, maybe early 50s, that's the first generation to be born into freedom, to not be born into segregation, and to not be born into to not be direct descendants of slaves, right? That's mind-boggling. That's just you're young people, right? And I think people look at slavery, people look at segregation and Jim Crow as something that happened a long time ago, instead of something that happened for a very long time and that we still feel the effects of today. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want people to be able to understand how close we still are to all of that.
And the recent documentary work I'm doing here, I don't want to let the cat totally out the bag, but I had to interview a freedom writer. She's like in her 80s, and she's telling me about a sit-in, right? So that, this just shows you how close, these generations really are. But our generation has fully benefited from it. And to the extent where we've kind of lost sight of preparing the next generation. And that sermon that my pastor preached really kind of helped me to think more generationally, like, how can my children's children benefit, right? And to the extent, like, after I heard that sermon, I literally, took out a life insurance policy and did an enduring gift for my church, right? Saying, hey, I want to leave, my church something as I depart, right? So it's very impactful. But when I sat down to actually write the story, again, I could write it from a very intimate place. I had been through it with my grandmother that has hence passed, currently going through it with my father. And then my wife now is dealing with it kind of early stages with her mother. So, that's just in my personal family. So it was really, when I sat down, like, how can I kind of tell this story to kind of hit home, and what would be the plot points and the characters? I knew I wanted to kind of, to tackle that and bring awareness to that. But then, boom, I gave it to Humphrey. And again, we're a great team. So I'll let him kind of take over on what, and try not to bash me too bad, man. Those early.
No, man. No, cool ass. But it is a collaborative thing. I mean, Sekou, I always say he's an idea machine. And so when he came with the idea and wrote out the script and sent it to me, I was like, oh man, this is good. And, all I do is kind of, smooth out some of the edges and and we'll toss ideas back and forth, and we'll look at things from a character perspective and how we can, make these characters authentic. And that's something that's always big with me, is really creating authentic characters. And so originally, and I don't think Sekou, I don't think I was always going to play the dad, I think originally, but we were, like you say, we had a constraint, right? We auditioned all of these parts virtually. But I think because it was COVID and it was the beginning stages and we didn't know what was what, we were thinking, okay, well, what's the quickest way we can get something going and get this production off the ground? And so I went ahead and played the father. And it was really important to me that it was that I really took the part and played the part as authentically as I could. I mean, I am a father, but I'm not a father with dementia. If I believed in wood, knocking on wood, I'd knock on it. And I'm not in those stages. And so it was really important to me to, like I say, be authentic in my portrayal of this father. And in the film, even though it's a short film, we do show a couple different sides to him. In one stage, he's getting into it with his son about how the decisions his son is making, and then another side we see him and he's having an episode in the middle of the street in his neighborhood. And so it was really important that when you're dealing with something like that, you never know. Like Sekou said, we didn't know how something like that being shown on film would affect people who are in those situations, but we knew we had to be authentic to that situation. And so it was really something we kind of just went for it. I had the luxury, if you will, of being able to shoot it at my house, like the location right in front of my house, my neighborhood. So in case any neighbors were watching this episode, they wouldn't call the police. They would see it's me. It's Humphrey doing some film stuff. Let me leave him alone. But it was something we just dove into it and made it go. But it's great when you have someone like Sekou. You can connect with people. You don't always connect with people artistically. And Sekou's not only a good brother, he's a good dude. We have the same faith base, we come from the same theological background, but he's also a very, very good partner artistically. And that's not all. You don't always have that. So very grateful to God for that. So yeah, love you, Sekou.
I love that. I love that. It's interesting because I'm curious, did Sekou share things that he's observed in interacting with family members who have been diagnosed with dementia or who have experienced those types of symptoms? Or where did you get your inspiration from, to be a bit cliche, but where, did you research what that experience is like? Because I think it's something that people think they understand, but oftentimes when we hear words like Alzheimer's disease, when we hear dementia, people immediately associate that with memory loss, but don't understand that there are a lot of other symptoms associated with that can make care relationships even more challenging. So how did you dig into that?
Well, I did do some research. We looked into just, that very thing, dementia, memory loss, stuff like that. For that particular scene, Sekou already had it on the paper, kind of what it was going to be. And for me, it was just about kind of getting into the mindset. So it's like this father who, in the movie, he's a pastor. And so a lot of times what I found and in my research, I saw that there, when people are, and it's not the same for everyone's different, but oftentimes those who are suffering from those kinds of things, they don't realize that they're abnormal. They're in their world. And so, again, Sekou had on a page where, this pastor would have his Bible with him. So it's often, something that's familiar, but he's in the middle of the street, and he's not properly clothed. And so it's like, it's just drawing those kind of things where like, in their mind, again, we're not in their minds, but just based on observation, looking at observational behavior, they don't know that they're not something's awkward, something's out of place. So for me, it was just about, making it feel like, okay, this man feels he's in the right place. And yet he still has a recognition that there's COVID, right? So when his daughter shows up, he's not wigging out that she sees him in the street, barely dressed with a Bible in his hands. He's wigging out that she's getting close to him. She didn't want him to get close to him. And so, it's just putting just all that and mixing it up to this one big gumbo of an episode of a dementia or kind of this episode that this father had. And so, thankfully, and let me not say thankfully, but had it been a full-length feature, it would have I would have definitely had to do a lot more research and a lot more work, again, because when you're dealing with something that's a full length, this scene was maybe not even a minute, where I had to portray this episode, but I can imagine the work that it would take to do a full length feature, having to portray someone having, this yo-yoing effect going back and forth in and out from about to dementia. So it's something, it's got to be one of the hardest things to do. If you're going to do it authentically, anybody can get up there and just start acting crazy. But, to have an authentic experience that's in line with the character and portray it, I think it's in line with the character, in line with the character's arc and whatnot. You got to put in some work on that. I think Anthony Hopkins did a movie recently where he played, I haven't seen it, but I hear it's brilliant. Anthony Hopkins he's Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins. But I hear he did one. I'm very interested in seeing what he did. And I did see an interview with him. He was doing an interview by Jodie Foster, and she asked him what his research was, and he went to it. He said, "No, I just got up there and just acted like I had dementia." I was like, "How do you act like?" But and so he just, so I don't know where he got his idea of what that was like. But maybe he's feeling a little something, and he's up there too now. So who knows?
Yeah.
But I think Humphrey hit on something that's key though, particularly for those who've kind of been through it. It's that it's hard for the person to really come to grips with it. Like my grandmother, to the day she went into the grave, was like nothing's wrong with her. You know what I mean? So you how do you deal with it, right? Like but no, that is anyway, I'll take that on.
And that's really, it's interesting. I'm always fascinated when I speak with folks about a creative process. What I really appreciate and respect about the two of you as creators, as well as about your film, is that authenticity and is that accuracy and that portrayal of those moments. And as you mentioned, Humphrey, every person who's living with dementia may experience things differently. But I think that in the short amount of time that you had, you were able to tell that story in a way that was done with sensitivity, balanced with realism. And I think that's so important, because I think that in popular culture, in many films that we see, people are afraid to have these conversations on screen, right? And I think there's so much of a fear and a stigma. Oftentimes what I find is that people living with dementia are the butt of a joke, right? They are the comic relief rather than a central character, or rather than part of that story arc that makes a difference, and that really can have an impact, a lasting impact, the way that you did so beautifully with this film. We screened it with our 2021 Care Fellows, and the response was absolutely phenomenal. It resonated with so many people, and our audience, our cohort is comprised of people of different ages and races and genders and socioeconomic backgrounds. There are people who are living with dementia who are in our cohort, and across the board, people responded very emotionally, but in a way that where they held such high regard for the work that you did. And so I have such great appreciation for your storytelling, because it's done artfully, it's done tastefully. And again, it really paints a picture of the experience. And, for those who are not aware, I'm someone who is also caring for parents who are living, for a parent who is living with dementia. And so the portrayal definitely resonated with me as well. Right now, the film is making its way through the festival circuit, which is very exciting. Are there ways that people can view the film? What are the ways that folks can get a glimpse?
Well, currently, as you mentioned, it's on the festival circuit, and we're doing private screenings. We will be releasing it soon, publicly. So I guess folks can just kind of follow us. Humphrey and I actually have a production company we just recently started together. So you I guess can get updates on what the film is up to, essentially from there. But we do intend to release it publicly in short order. But yeah, our intent now, like we're partnering with um, other organizations like yours just to kind of get the word out, man, to just kind of bring awareness to the topic.
That's awesome. If folks want to get in touch with you, follow your production company, are you on social media? Do you have a website? How can folks reach out?
Absolutely. Humphrey, you want to hit them with that or?
Basically Instagram and Facebook at Color Coded Films. I think that's what the handle is, right? At Color Coded Films, Sekou.
Color Coded Films.
Yeah, and then of course, while we get that together and going, our personal handles, I'm at Humphrey Browne 3. That's Humphrey Browne, the number 3. And then I believe Sekou is at Koo Browne.
Koo Browne, KOUBROWNE on Instagram, and Sekou Browne, my full name, at Facebook.
Yeah, and same for Facebook, Humphrey Browne 3 at Facebook for Facebook. But definitely follow us for updates on when the film is going to be released. Like I say, Sekou mentioned, we'll be up soon and very soon. We're getting all our stuff together, so we appreciate all
well, going old school right there, but that's brilliant, and I'm so excited. Please follow these young brothers. They're doing amazing work. They are an inspiration, and I'm just grateful that both of you joined me today here at Caregiver Corner and have allowed me to view the film and share it with folks. It's a really, really wonderful piece of art. And if you have an opportunity to see it, please take the chance. And I thank you and certainly look forward to staying in touch and keeping an eye out for the big things. And I do expect a shout out when you accept your Oscar awards.
We'll be coming.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and commented and liked and shared today. I want to thank my guests once again, Sekou Browne and Humphrey Browne III, for joining me today at Caregiver Corner. If you would like to learn more about ways that you can get involved with caring across generations and share your experience and narrative around caregiving, please visit our website at caringacross.org. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great night.